If we're going to have a healthy perspective of the provider, God, a father who provides for us, then I want us to draw 6 principles. The first one is the principle of faith versus fear. We need to be people who trust God. And I think sometimes our fear can stop us doing that. And some of our experiences might mean that we don't expect God to provide. But actually we need to be people of faith who will trust God to provide what we need. A second principle is that of responsibility versus rights. In other words, when God does provide, there's a purpose behind him providing that. Sometimes that purpose is to just show us how much he loves us. But often he gives us resources, he gives us things for a purpose. And that brings us on to the third principle, which is that principle of stewardship versus irresponsibility. We need to have wisdom with what God gives us. You know, a mature view of God as provider is that we need to use what we have wisely, and you know, he might give us meet our material needs, but he also wants us to use what he gives us in a responsible way. A fourth principle is that principle of being generous rather than tight-fisted, and we've already touched on that when we looked at the characteristic of God being generous. But a lot of it talks about where our heart is. You know, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's also about, I would say, a principle of kingdom versus castle. It's getting that perspective that when God blesses us and he does provide, he wants us to help and partner with him in building his kingdom. And often he gives us resources to help us to be able to do that. And finally, there's that sense of measure versus material. In other words, you know, he can give us that wealth, but that wealth might not actually be in material means. He might give us a wealth of experience. He might give us a wealth of love, a wealth of empathy. When God provides, he doesn't always provide in the way that we think, but he always provides in a way which is what we need. In Matthew 7, we have the verse that says, with the measure you use, it will be used to you. I don't believe as Christians we're called to a poverty spirit, but riches are not always the riches of human terms. So we might be blessed in many, many ways, but might not experience that in material ways, but have a huge wealth of what we need. But we also know that God is able to meet our needs. And in Philippians 4 verse 19 there's a great verse that says, the same God who takes care of me will supply all your needs from his glorious riches given to us in Christ Jesus. The problem is sometimes we try to fix things ourselves rather than asking for Father's help. You know, the Lord's Prayer says, give us today our daily bread. God knows what we need, and actually we can trust him to provide what we need. I remember leaving university with no job, rent to pay, asking the questions of what I should do, and coming across the great verse in Matthew's Gospel that says, don't worry about what you'll eat or what you'll wear or what you'll drink, but seek first my kingdom, and all these things will be given to you. And my experience over the years has been that when I've put God first and trusted him, he has provided in a generous way for us and met all our needs, however hard circumstances have been. Sometimes our loving Father also gives us some wants, not just our needs. And so sometimes we need to understand that sometimes God just loves us and wants to be generous to us. But let's understand, we approach a generous Father who is a good Father, and he wants us to know him as our provider, meeting our needs, to be able to live a rich, rewarding life with or without material things. The thing is, it's not how much you have, but it's how much you can be trusted with. What can you be trusted with? And if God is going to be a provider for you, how much can he trust you with?